Hi, so welcome back to Real Auto Reports. Today we are going to give you the real video, the real review on this 2013 Toyota Prius. This is the 5 model, which puts it at the top of the line. So you've got your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5. Here we are at the top with lots of interesting features we'll talk about, including the SoftTex, where they don't give you leather, but they give you the look-alike. And we'll talk about why that is, all in this real video, the detailed review. So let's jump in the driver's seat and get going. Hi, so welcome back. We are in the 2013 Toyota Prius. Now, as I said in the opening, this is the Prius 5. And yes, they go 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to this top of the line model. And so what's interesting about the Prius, and in this real video, the real review, what we want to talk about is we want to give you the details, all the details we can think of, or at least that we can fit into a reasonable time here. And I guess let's start with the fact that this car is basically $36,000, $35,700 and some change. And so that's a lot of money for a Prius. Now see, we're cruising out here onto the road in EV mode. And if you are very ginger with the accelerator and you drive in a very economical fashion in eco mode and all of that, you can go some distance without engaging the engine. And what's interesting about this car, or at least I think from my perspective, is that it can get the 51 miles per gallon in the city and the 48 out on the highway, giving you that pretty stellar combined rating of 50 miles per gallon. So that's coming from a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder motor combined to the hybrid system, and all of that will give you just a little bit over 130 horsepower. And so this car is comparable in power to other what I would call compact and urban intended vehicles. This is definitely a vehicle that is meant for city, although you will see these traveling the country because they do get such good highway mileage. The thing about the Prius is that a lot of people don't ding it because of the type of, the stereotypical driver, if you will, that is now thought to drive these cars. And that may be slightly unfair, but the fact of the matter is that I think you have to want certain values to want to drive this car. I think you want, definitely, you are concerned about the price you're paying at the pump. That has got to be a consideration or a factor in your decision, because this car gets stellar mileage, but it's also very uninspired in the materials inside, and uninspired from a luxury perspective, not from an innovative perspective of what it takes to build one of these cars and what it takes to make a car that is got such a low drag coefficient and such a high mile per gallon rating, such as this car has. And so what I think is interesting about this car is that you have what we would consider cheap materials. They're not really cheap though. What you have are materials that are super light. Like these seats are not leather. They are what they call a SoftTex in the interior. And this SoftTex is, so think of it like a vinyl or a pleather. But this SoftTex is meant to be much lighter than the materials of leather or previous generation interiors. So what that's going to mean for the average consumer is that you are getting the simulation of leather, even though it really feels like vinyl to me. And you're getting heated seats in this 5. You're getting a lot of stuff that is, what the consumer wants, but what you want. But it's going to feel very different than probably what you're used to. So that's something that, when driving this car, you have to kind of set your expectations at the right level. It is a loud car inside compared to some, not compared to other urban or entry-level cars, because remember, the Prius can start right at $22,400, right about that range. So in the low 22,000s, you can get into the base Prius. And so when you look at the car from that perspective, it's really good. But when you get up to this $35,000, almost $36,000 level, all of a sudden you're playing in a different category. You're playing in a category where you could start to look at the Lexus version of the hatchback hybrid. And then you're in entry-level luxury. And it's not going to get quite as good gas mileage in the Lexus brand, even though it's, built off very similar technology being in the Toyota family. But that's where the Prius starts to hit some challenges, because when you look at that entry-level sedan at the Lexus level, and then you look at this sedan at the high end, I think that the Prius starts to lose some of its cachet, because all of this is in a $20,000 to $25,000 car or $28,000 car is going to seem okay. Okay, I've got some, contrast stitching on these, SoftTex seats. I've got, multicolors inside. That's all really awesome. Textured dashboard, digital gauge, heads-up display, because we do have the tech package on this. Heated front seats, even though they're only a single stage. And I think that's interesting that they're one heat, not a low and a high. It's just high, just all heat all the time. But you do have things like this model, because of the tech package that it has the adaptive cruise. So, these things you wouldn't find on the lower end Prius, but you might not expect to. And I think you have to kind of cross-shop this car in the price category with other hybrids that are available. Frankly, for a few $1,000s more, you could get the full-size Hyundai Sonata hybrid or the Camry hybrid, the Toyota Camry hybrid, with the same type of features. And the Camry hybrid's got a beautiful interior these days. You can see it on our YouTube page in both the 11 in the 12, I should say, the black 12 and the bright red 2013. And so when I think about this Prius, the struggle that I have is, why would you buy one? They are a different driving experience. You do notice more in this car, I think, the engine turning on from a stop. Not while you're driving so much. The transition while you're driving is actually really good. But when you are sitting still and the car's turned off, and then you start to roll away and get going again, I think you find that this car becomes, you feel that boom, and it starts up, which you don't notice in some of the other cars, even in the Toyota family. The steering in this car, I don't know if there's something different about it, but I find that when I'm driving the Prius, it does have low rolling resistance tires, so that will contribute. Even in the cold, you'll notice a little bit different traction feel. But what I notice is that it's such a light car, and it's so tuned for aero, that I find that it is susceptible to grooves in the pavement. I find that it's susceptible to high winds. We get in the Rocky Mountain region, we get, breaking winds that come across from the foothills, in the 30, 60, 90 mile an hour gusts. And you feel that on this car. And so I think it tends to give it a perception in the steering that it's wandering a little bit. But it really does have a good center feel, a good weight to the wheel. It's not a car that you're going to struggle with moving around in. It will get up onto the highway and do highway speeds. I think you'll find that this car will be very capable out on the road. It's a car that I believe will travel distance well, but you hear things in this car. If we drive around here on our gravel portion of Real Auto Reports, you hear a lot of noise in this car, and you sort of understand that the sound deadening is really given away to make sure that you have the most fuel efficiency. And that's what this car is about. It's about driving as far as you can on as much electric in a hybrid mode. But where I suggest that people cross-shop, because this car's got, I mean, everything you could want. It's got steering wheel controls for the sounds, your modes. You've even got temperature controls for the HVAC, so you don't have to move over here. And if you can see the dash, when you touch these, the gauges even that you're touching and you're putting your finger on pop up in front of the speedometer. Now, they don't block it, which I think is important to say. You can still see the speedometer, but they pop up so you don't even have to look down that much off the road to adjust. You don't have to come to the middle here. This car, though, is not as ergonomic as I would have thought. This all is very reachable. The shifter, even though it is odd, but you get used to it. The park button to put it in park. But what you do have to reach for is, like, I can't comfortably from my driving position reach the tuning scroll knob for the radio. And this button here on the wheel only changes your presets. So there, you know, this seek track, this is a bit of a reach for me, and I would have to get closer with my long legs to reach that. However, you know, like your hazard button is super easy to reach. Power, EV, Eco, those modes are easy to reach. Your mirrors are a bit of a reach, though, on the driver's side, because they're down here on this fascia along with your headlight washers and your dimmer. Now, one thing I note with the dimmer is if you have it turned all the way down during the day, if you like it dimmed, when the lights come on at night, what's interesting is the gauges turn off completely because it's too dimmed. So that's kind of an interesting thing that we found. And I also find it interesting that this car has so many cool options, yet when you cross-shop it to something like the Chevrolet Volt, which can do, you know, 35 to 40 miles full electric. We've driven one. It was before we were doing our Real Auto Report videos, and we drove it for a week. It was a great car because you plugged it in at night, you got that range of electric, and after the tax rebates, you're right about the same price as this car if you have the top of the line Volt. So definitely when you consider the Prius today and you look at it, if you're interested in this higher end model, what I caution you is to carefully cross shop the type of car you want. They all have their strong suits, and you know, this has cool features like this upper glove box section that you can put stuff in, and then the lower glove box section. But if you can hear this, it's all plastic. So it's the thing is that this car does not appeal to the luxury end of the market. It appeals to the practical, usable, best economy you can get out of a hybrid, but not necessarily the best economy you can get out of a plug-in hybrid, which is what the Volt would bring you. And so the other thing I want to point out, and this is a huge pet peeve of mine, if you put it in reverse, now that's on the inside of the car. That's not on the outside. Like on the Leaf, you barely get the sense of this ding, ding inside, but on the Leaf, it's dinging out behind the car. This is super annoying. I cannot tell you, like when you're sitting waiting to back out of a parking space, so you want the reverse lights on, and somebody's trying to back, you know, you're like, gosh, get that car out of my way, I need to back out. This will drive you insane. I don't know if there's a way to turn it off, but I don't know why standard it's like this. Like you don't know that you just shifted it up into reverse. So that's one of my big pet peeves about this car. But otherwise, it has good power. It's not going to be a rocket. It's not going to be a car that you race, but it's got great, you know, acceleration off the line. Even in eco mode rather, it's good. The fuel economy is good. But what I think you'll find is if you're driving one of these Priuses every day, I think you'll find that the game of getting good mileage for some people will get old. Not everyone. Some people love it. Some people love to do the hypermiling, and I say more power to them. But I find that when you're in a hurry and you're like, I got to get over there, I got to do this, even in eco mode, it's helping you drive better. But my overall mileage over the 500 miles we have on this tank is, it's saying from its computer, 44.4. And that's because I will fully admit that I drive with my foot on the floor when I'm getting onto the onto the entrance ramps to the freeway. I'm really wanting to just get and move. So I think all in all, Toyota is continuing to lead the pack in the hybrid technology. I still question, though, the looks and functionality of the Prius at this high-end Prius 5. I think at the lower end, the $22,000 to $26,000 range with the lower-end models, I think it makes a lot more sense. But it is neat to see that they're offering things like heads-up display and, the full navigation and adaptive cruise and all of that. So it's nice to have all those features available. But the other things that's missing is, there's no blind spot monitoring, there's no cross path detection, and there's no park assist front or rear in this car. So, that's the thing that you want to take into consideration as you look at all your options. That's our thoughts. We'll give you the real wrap-up coming up next, so stay tuned. So that's the real video, the real review on this 2013 Toyota Prius 5. We think that this vehicle, well, it does what it's really meant to do. It's exceptional in miles per gallon. That 50 mile per gallon combined, 51 city, 48 highway. So you're going to do good no matter what you're trying to do when you get to the pump. Now, this car can also do several hundred miles on a tank. We have well over 300 miles on this tank here in the car. You're also going to get some cool features with this car, like the adaptive cruise and the lane keep assist, the LKA that you see on the steering wheel. That's going to help you keep in your lanes, because there's something about these Prius models that they seem to want to wander, and I haven't figured out what it is. Maybe it's the low rolling resistance tires, or it's just the steering setup, or maybe it's just that they're very light. And so they are as light as possible. It's one of the reasons you have that SoftTex interior instead of leather. Everything they do in this car helps save weight and keeps the drag coefficient down. What that means is that they kind of blow around, it seems. Other things that we notice, well, are that you can really get into one of these for about $24,200 as a base price, and then you can option it up almost to $36,000 like this car here. So there's a lot of range, a lot of options, and then you can look at the family members like the Prius V we looked at about a year ago, and other models like the Prius C, the city car. So I guess what Toyota is trying to do is make these palatable, and they haven't quite made them mainstream in terms of volume, but they're definitely mainstream around most cities, because you'll see a Prius just about everywhere you look. It's just hard to believe that there's still only a couple percentages of the total auto population, but making great inroads and some neat design cue features that they've updated. So we think Toyota is still leading the pack. For Real Auto Reports, I'm Jonathan McGrew, right here at Real Auto Ranch. We'll see you for more video reviews down the road.